Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Quick Slants with Bethel University head football coach Steve Johnson. Quick Slants is a program that gives you, the fans, the opportunity to ask the Bethel coach questions about the Royals, football or sports in general, or just seek the coach's wisdom about life events. In this month's episode, the coach shares with us team updates and recruiting information for us. He talks with us a little bit about the Super Bowl and what's going on with his beloved Chicago teams, and we hear what he's praising God for this month. So let's get right to Quick Slants. So let us welcome back Coach Johnson for our February edition of Quick Slants. So Coach, let's first of all begin with team updates you have for us.
Guys are doing really well. We have a J term we just finished where the students take one class and it's fairly intense, so they'll have maybe 3 hours of class in the morning, and then they'll have something in the afternoon that'll be, go along with it, or sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, depending on what they do. And a lot of kids travel. There are a lot of great business takes one out into Europe, and some kids going to Guatemala. Some of them are service, but they're all classes. So you do a 3-credit class, and you might do it in Germany or something. So we've got some of those guys. Some of the guys did that. We had our recruiting events and things going on here, and so things really went well. And so we're back going. We have a team meeting today to get back together. Basically, it's not anything big. We're going to talk about next year's schedule and some of the pieces that are important to that, because it changes a little bit, it flips, and so we're going to talk about emphasis and flow in that regard, and have guys thinking ahead that way, and just a little bit of motivation, and also just kind of time to get together again and stuff like that. They're together all the time, but it's in their lifting piece, and so those things go. The process of the off season in football is different than just about every other sport, and most things are about the game, but we're every day you're kind of preparing for next year, but you can't be thinking about next year all the time. You got to be into today, and so those are important pieces. But in basketball or volleyball, when you start camp, you might have played basketball or volleyball yesterday. In football, you haven't played since November, and so our guys, our weight room and our workouts and the work that we do out on the track and in the field is really critical toward next year. So our open gym, if you will, is in the conditioning room, and we have a state-of-the-art facility in there now, and Coach Meyer's got the guys going, and the atmosphere is electric and very fun, and we take it seriously, but it's very fun, partly because we take it seriously. So that's kind of just really good juice in there and enthusiasm. Guys are getting bigger, stronger, faster. You feel good about it.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about the weight room aspect of this, because I heard this from a lot of the guys, and you've mentioned this in a prior show, that the new weight room, which you didn't want to lose, was the feeling of the closeness of how that other weight room. So how have you tried to accommodate that so guys still feel that same kind of intimacy?
Yeah, well, we're not, we want to be aware of that, but we don't want to be artificial either. You know what I mean? So there's that deal where, and if it's a lot of talk or rah rah, sis boom bah, that's not the big deal. And I think our guys, our coaches, we know what's needed. We're directed by Coach Meyer on that, and he directs all the sports. But we know what's needed and what we're after, and then the guys kind of motivate us because they buy in, and next thing you know, the guys are motivating us to give them more, but you need to be sharp too. It's not in the olden days, we'd go in there, and the longer you're in there, the better, and it was just pretty stupid physiologically, let alone everything else. And when you're in there too long, you're sitting around, and so we're really our programs they're scientific, and they're specific, and they're quick. And then the guys bring in the juice. The guys bring in, baby, here we go. You know what I mean? So they do those things for one another, and they care about each other. So the motivation is high five and excitement, but it's also nipping in the bud a little bit and just, getting people, encouraging, but also holding one another accountable. And, sometimes if you're a stranger, it might sound rougher than it is, but it's like we get after it in there because the game requires that, so you have to practice that.
With today being National Signing Day and you mentioning about the recruiting event, so how is recruiting going for you?
It's going really well. Signing day for a Division III coach usually isn't that fun because we have a celebratory letter that they have right now that we can add, which is kind of a cool thing, I think. I mean, I don't know too much about it, but there's some young people that will sign today at maybe a D2 school or a NAIA school, and they're kind of, in my opinion, and this is as a dad, they're going there because it feels good to get $1,000 to play football. So I'm a scholarship guy, and that might feel good for a little bit, but in the long run, that you have to end up going to that school. And I'm not saying that the school is bad, but is it the one? Have you figured out which one is the right place for you? And academically and athletically, obviously, but even bigger than that, what culture? Where do you want? You're setting your heart into a new situation, and is it going to be cared for, and are you going to be stretched and grow in the right things?
So have you had a lot of people already commit themselves to coming to Bethel at this point?
Yes, we do, and kind of at our level, one more thing is the guy will say, I'm coming, I'm coming if I can. That's a commitment at D3 because what we've got is financial aid's not done, taxes aren't done, all those different things aren't, you can only make those predictions, and people have to be sold on the school, and so you can't, if you're just coming to Bethel for football, you're not, it's not good, that's not the right thing, but it's okay if it leads sometimes, and because something else may lead, the major, physics, business, whatever, that might lead. But if that's the only if you think that's all you're getting, it's not worth it, but in my opinion, if you pick the right school, it doesn't matter what it costs. I honestly believe that from my heart. If you pick the right place. I just had a youngster in here the other day and talked about, I said, he was talking about two schools, and they're in our league, and us, and I just said, we have some guys on our team, quite a few in fact, that have kind of mentioned in the recruiting process, a long time ago that they, after games I usually, just kind of went home, hung out with my parents, and because a lot of guys weren't doing stuff that I wanted to do, and those guys might want to come here, you know what I mean, because you're gonna have something to do after the game and every single day, you know what I mean, and so that, and I'm not saying that in college you guys do whatever they do, but if that's all there is, that gets a little lonely, and it's we say you get good at what you practice. Well, that doesn't, 4 years in college, that's not true either. So what you practice in college, you'll get good at it, and so make sure it's something that's worthwhile to give to others, including your family.
Absolutely, especially after a big event like a game, that's always good to hang out with guys and just talk about stuff. So.
Doing the right thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. In previous episodes, we talked about some of the injuries that you've had, and you've had surgeries. So tell me a little bit about where that's at this point.
Everything's progressing. You don't. Trey Anderson's knee, and I can't think of all of them. A couple guys even graduated, and they're doing good. And so, everybody's there are just a lot of injuries and pieces that have to be put together, and you lose time right now in that, and so the rehab, a rehab for my knee, I'm just, that's not as good as being fresh and going. So we continue to monitor those things and bring people along as quickly as we can, but still be smart, you know what I mean? Because in the season, you hurry up and we don't want to be that hurried, but we don't want to just say, oh, it'll take time, let it take its time, because that's not how, things done. Back in the olden days, Gail Sayers had an ACL, and they did surgery and then put him in a cast for 4 months or something, which is the exact opposite of what you should do. Now they have machines that get your leg going while you're not even awake yet,
Wow.
And yeah, so it's just so many different things. So you want to be aggressive, with the rehab, and getting guys ready, and hopefully you're even ahead of schedule and all those things. So, but we are the doctors are brilliant, and the studies have shown, so on and so forth. So we kind of just walk through open doors with those things.
That's excellent. Before we head into our fan questions this week, we had quite a few people who wanted to know who would be your Super Bowl pick for this year.
Well, I'm still working through that thing. Really like Peyton Manning. I like Kubiak. I like the Broncos. I really love the fact that the two best defenses are in the Super Bowl, and that's kind of like, I don't know if it's my philosophy, but I believe that's where you start. You get your program solidified there, and then the NFL is a little bit of a different cat, where the quarterback is it's just so utterly huge. But I like both teams run the ball pretty well, and I kind of like Jared Allen. Got to know him a little here when he was with the Vikings, and that's a guy whose life has been changed, through Coach Frazier and things like that, and so I'd like him to do well, and but as far as, I don't know, it's a weird thing. I would rather be for somebody, probably, but I'll figure it out.
Very tactful of you. That's excellent. Heading into our first question, Jeremy from St. Paul would like to know, Coach, do you worry that the record of the last 2 seasons may hurt recruiting for you in any way?
Not a bit, and that's a record. And 2 seasons ago was 7-3, and we lost a goofy game on the ice, so that wasn't really a bad record. And last year we were 5-5, but we've had times where I've talked to recruits and gone through the whole thing, asked if they have any questions, and they said, "How did you do this year?" And we had just, won the league and gone to the playoffs, and we're 4th in the country. And so that's not something we talk about in recruiting anyway, and so, it could hurt if your record's posted out there and somebody, thinks that 7-3 is not good enough or whatever. But if somebody's picking, if they're kind of going on your record for the last 2 years, somebody could like you because of that. They think I got a chance to play, you know what I mean? And if it's too good, some guys might, do you want to be on the team or do you want to play, or da-da-da? And so that's about, 2,000th on the list of how a person should pick a school. And so I'd say no.
That's an interesting answer. Excellent. Our next question is, are there players that you were expecting to have a really big season or a much bigger impact for you for next season?
Yeah, 100 of them. I think that we go in, our expectations are incredibly high. Our history in the past 15 seasons is tops in the league. And so our expectations don't change. We need to manage them, and not be kind of, if you're out in your expectations too far, you might not be doing today as well as you ought to. And the same happens in your own life, in my own life, is you worry, and I want to care about stuff, but I don't want to worry about stuff, and that's a fine line. And so sometimes we worry about, and then we make up stories what's going to happen, whereas and then I'm not doing today right, which is really going to affect that. My thinking has no effect on that later on unless I'm planning, but that's different than worry, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so being out there somewhere, or even being back, like the last question, being back at a record that's gone, has no bearing on what we're after today. And I think it really is an everyday deal. And yeah, obviously you want goals and objectives and all those things out there, but if they're there's got to be a base and a core. You know, that's where as a Christian guy, as a Christian group of guys within our team is, you know, we can't get too far off of you know what our base is. And you think about that even as an offensive lineman, you got to keep your base and all those different things, and because you're just kind of teetering and flipping in the wind if you're not. And so we just want to get back base fundamentals and, you know, grateful heart, toughness, and devoted to one another and the King.
You know, I would think in the way that you answered that question by saying you're looking for 100 guys, I think a lot of people miss the idea that they look at this and they say, well, you know, you're losing a Marshall Klitsky, so you need somebody to be a big-time running back for you, or whatever the case is going to be. But I think this season showed you that 4 or 5 games into the season, you had 11 or 12 guys that were starting that didn't plan on being the starter when the season began. So you need guys to say, hey, I need you to be ready at any moment.
Yeah. Well, and that, the other part about, and this is where I thought I was going with that, because the obvious answer to that one is Trey. I've got a great quarterback coming in that's going to be good for us. Gunnar Bloom, we think, is a ridiculous player. Our entire offensive line is going to be, you know, so going on and on with all those things. Our defensive line is as athletic and tough and fast as we've had. Our secondary, I mean, all over the place. But the other piece to that is 100 guys. We have 100 guys. People don't realize it goes at the recruit thing. Are you going to lose recruits? If we lose recruits because of a record thing, that wouldn't be it. We didn't lose them. We never had them anyway. So we're going to work with the guys that are there. But you know, we talk about the stars and all that, but there's a lot of guys that are really important that don't play a lot. You know, and so my expectations for those guys are the same as they are for Gunnar Bloom and Trey Anderson and Bryce Marcourt and Charles Johnson, all those guys who are just electric, and people, you see them and you notice them and stuff, but there's some backup nose guards that we're expecting to be amazing next year. You know, so that's what I meant by 100.
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense. Our next question is, the odds makers have the Carolina Panthers winning the game by 7. Do you think that there is any way the game will be that close?
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I think it, you know, the one thing about the Super Bowl, and people complain about it, and they've never been in that mix, is that you can be, you know, just almost as good as somebody else and lose by 3 points, or you can beat them, and you can be almost as good as somebody else and get beat by 50. You know, and sometimes when the football game, they get mad about the Super Bowls, and people have a tendency to say, well, these guys are way better than these guys because they won by 40. And what happens is a turnover, you get a pick, something else happens, and now I've kind of had to change who I am, and I'm throwing the ball all over the place when I'm really a running team, but we're trying to catch up and hurry up, and so we get out of the character of ourselves. If you can stay in who you are, execute your game plan, you have a better shot at that. But what happens is, you know, in those lopsided games anyway, it's usually a turnover or a pick six, and something goofy happens, and next thing you know, it steamrolls, and the score wouldn't have been as big if we weren't pushed into a different mode, into a kind of a 2-minute drill type thing.
Absolutely. Our next question from Steve from Richfield. He'd like to know, Terrell Owens was named as a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This guy has great numbers, but has always been such a jerk. They should keep him out, don't you think?
Whew, that's a tough one, because if they kept all the jerks out of the Hall of Fame, there'd probably be smaller, and if they put the good guys in, maybe it'd be bigger. I don't know. But I mean, I feel like I agree with. I mean, I kind of look at him like that. He must have good numbers, because I keep hearing about him, and he's really a good-looking athlete and everything. But I really struggle enjoying the guy, and you know, the guys that blocked and made the throws to him that made him have all of his numbers. But I agree, he's a kind of a jerk, but I don't think you can keep him out for that. You know, they kind of have the guys that took drugs, you know, for the steroids or whatever, that they can't go into the baseball one, but the other guys, if they took other drugs, they might be in there. You know what I mean? So I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you do those things. Hall of Fame, you know, if you know, I don't think you can keep him out for being a jerk. I don't disagree.
Tammy from Arden Hills would like to know, speaking of the Hall of Fame, who do you see getting into the Football Hall of Fame? So we pulled up a list for you for the coach, and let's see what he's got.
Boy, I love Steve Atwater at safety, great player. I'm always partial to coaches. Don Coryell, he's a crabby sucker though. So Tony Dungy is he's in a lot of Hall of Fames because just the character of the man. So I enjoy him. I don't even remember the guard for I guess the Jets and Finisa or whatever.
I think so, yeah.
I'd say Brett Favre for sure needs to go in. I'd say Kevin Green, sack guy. But he's another guy who I wonder about. He's got the sacks, but I remember him a lot, but not as, not being as, he's not a Reggie White type guy. But I think he's a great one. I think Marvin Harrison played on some tough teams, on some good ones. He was a dude. But, if I had to pick 5 here, I'd go with, I love Kurt Warner, number 1. He wouldn't be number 1, I'd say. I mean, obviously Brett Favre has to go in just because, what he did. I'd say Kurt Warner, Orlando Pace, and Joe Jacoby. And then if a coach probably goes in separately, I'd take Dungy over Coryell.
That's a good pick, I would say. Jim from St. Paul would like to know from you, I saw the Football Hall of Fame list come out. Does Bethel have their own Hall of Fame?
Bethel has a Football Hall of Fame, but it's kind of not really, I guess. It's a little bit older and it's kind of discontinued. And I don't know.
Not really at this time?
Not really at this time. Yeah.
Okay.
We have an older one where Coach Jimmy Miller is in there, Brian Johnson's from guys back there. Jim Nelson was a great running back from back in the day, and he's in there. Kim Walker is a guy when I played. Kevin Hallstrom, those guys are in there, but we haven't kept it up to date. So there's a Hall of Fame, but it's not maybe active.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. Derek from Minneapolis asks, he was reading that John Elway has been to 5 Super Bowls as a player and 2 as an executive now. Shouldn't he be considered one of the best football guys of all time?
I guess so. Yeah. I think he's really he's done some great things, and he's obviously just a terrific player. Yes.
Good answer. Clark from Chicago says, it's February, Coach, just 2 weeks away from spring training beginning. Is this the Cubs' year? Please say it's so.
I probably won't, because I'm too old to say that this is the year, because I'm so used to saying wait till next year on April 30th. But I am very excited about. I'm always excited about spring training, even when the Cubs, were hibernating for all those years. But they're an exciting group, and I can't wait for that stuff to get going. February is a tougher month because there's not some of the stuff that we need March Madness to get here, and spring training, those kinds of things. So
for sure. Actually, a lot of Chicago questions this week. Next is Clark from Chicago, who asks, Coach Johnson, can you explain how Derrick Rose is celebrating his 3-pointer a few nights ago like he had just won the game, then they lose? I just don't get these players these days.
Yeah, I get that I didn't see the Rose thing. I saw that he made a great shot to send it into overtime or something, and then they lost anyway. But I do have a little bit of a problem with the pros that are. Celebration crud gets so silly that either self grandizing or even can be taunting the other guys or whatever it is. Every time you get a first down, you don't have to tell everybody, but I don't know how to do anything different on that. But the Bulls are struggling, and I wish that they just work hard and be kind of a blue-collar team like Chicago ought to be, and I think they go back and forth that way. But I don't know. And that bugs me too a little bit, players. But somebody lets them, so.
True, yeah, that's true. Devin from St. Paul wants to know, is it hard for you to see such a big superstar like Kobe Bryant play so poorly in his final season? Shouldn't he just retire now?
No, it doesn't make me sad that he plays poorly, although he hurt the Timberwolves just now. But anybody who's been compared to Michael Jordan, like he's just about as good as Michael Jordan, I always root for him to do bad. So, because I'm a Bulls fan and a Michael Jordan fan, so Kobe, I've never wanted him to do great, and I don't care when he quits.
That's some serious honesty
Sorry, Coach.
Adam from Chicago asked, the Blackhawks look like they're catching fire at the right time. Do you see them as clearly the team to beat now?
Well, I think you have to, if the previous champ, really in any sport, if the previous champ is back and winning, and for hockey it would be in the playoff hunt, because it's a little hard to get to the playoffs, in hockey, just because there's just a lot of good teams and that schedule is so long. So I think they kind of have to be the team to beat. It might be because Corey Crawford's playing so well. He's just doing a great job, and then Kane's line is really good, and Tays, they move Shaw and stuff to be with Tays and Hossa, and then those young kids are pretty hungry. So they're really a fun team to watch, and you just can't forget about like Seabrook and Duncan Keith. Those guys are terrific players, and they really know how to ramp it up in the next one. But the Hawks aren't very up and down. Right before the break they had a couple games I thought were a little weird, but they're just pretty hard to beat them 4 times out of 7.
Plus, they always seem to stock the team in the right way to put together a really good core of 20 for themselves.
Yeah, it just really seems that way. I think they scout people well, and I think Coach Quenneville is awesome, where he's got the guys know he loves them, but he's definitely the boss, and they don't question him, and so that way when you don't do that, there's nobody sabotaging anybody on that team that I can see.
Joe from Arden Hills would like to know how you like the new NHL All-Star Game format.
To be honest with you, I was watching something else and had some work to do, so I missed it. I thought it was a great idea. I think the All-Star Games, with the exception of baseball, the All-Star Games are goofy. So to do something that's kind of fun like that, I think it was kind of a cool deal. I think it was a good idea.
I enjoyed it myself. It was nice to watch that.
Yeah, I saw some replays and stuff.
For sure. Trent from St. Paul would like to know from you, Coach, you were a tough guy, so you had to like John Scott being named the NHL All-Star Game MVP.
I'm not that much of a tough guy, and I think the thing I like about hockey now is there's a lot of Hawks just scored. That's my phone ringer, sorry. Blackhawks just scored. Or somebody called me and I missed it. Anyway, I like hockey now for the fact that there aren't fights all the time. I think the game is amazing, and it's fast, and it's the skill of those guys passing and catching, the hands those guys have is ridiculous, and so I'm not a big fan of I think the story's kind of fun with this John Scott guy, but I'm not into that enforcer dude.
No,
I like in every sport, I like guys that can do it all. Irritates me when some guys can't shoot free throws.
I agree.
That kind of thing.
Friend from St. Paul would like to know from you, the Wild look dead, Coach, don't you think? Is it time to trade their high-priced players and start over?
I don't think so. I don't know if that's the problem. I think that they got to get into a little bit of a groove and work toward. I think we're all like that. I think we all want to change to get something else, and can they get hot? The Hawks were probably about where the Wild are right now last year. And then they made the playoffs, and then they just know how to ramp it up, and you know, so I think that they need to get their locker room right, and I don't know if there's somebody in there who's not good for them, then they could move them and grab something else.
Excuse
But I
me.
don't know if you can be guaranteed to bring in somebody that's gonna, you know, if somebody's not scoring a goal every night, he's not gonna do it when he gets on our team either, you know, and so, I guess I would try to tweak what we got and where we are and do the little things a little bit better and, work toward those things, and you gotta fight through some stuff, and that's a life thing too.
Well, I think people saw with this last season's Kansas City Chiefs, they were 1-5 and everybody had them as dead, and then they won 10 games in a row, so, you know,
Yeah.
you can turn it around. Our next question comes from Stan, who asks, what quality about Jesus do you really admire the most?
Wow, probably his patience, you know, you really, I mean, I feel like I wish I could, because I'm kind of emotional, sometimes in a good way, sometimes in a bad way, but, I admire that he walks into a situation with a calm, you know, shalom, you know, and, is, in charge without being bossy. He's in charge without, you know, he's kind of, you know, ask questions to teach. I love that. I mean, it's something I'm not good at that, but I do, you know, and that's, as I read the stories of Jesus and what he said, I love how he teaches. I love how he, has that peaceful shalom about him, and it's very, it coexists with love, big time, you know.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so not in a soft love, but in a, you know, there's just a strength about that.
Our next question, which is a kind of lengthy one, so please bear with me, is from Hank from Brainerd, who asks, Coach, love your thoughts. I hear people say that they can't wait for Jesus to return. I asked them if there are people that they love who do not know Jesus yet, and they say yes. I then ask why they would want Jesus to return if people who are close to them would perish. If we really want Jesus to return now, shouldn't we be doing more so that more people like this are saved? Curious what you think.
I think, can't wait for Jesus to return. I hope he waits till Monday because I want to see the Super Bowl, but I can go either way. I don't, you know, I don't think when the Lord tells us to witness, I don't know that everybody witnesses the same way, and you know, I want to care about people that are perishing, but I can't worry about them. I got to be the man that I'm supposed to be in kingdom stuff and do my stuff. So I think most people that I think that don't know the Lord or don't want to, if I got on them too much, it might go worse the other way. So there's a bunch of things in that question that we can't control, and the Holy Spirit, he can take care of all that stuff. And so I guess I'm not promised tomorrow, so I want to do a good job today. And so I don't really think about those things ever.
Mary from Albert Lee would like to know from you, what kind of qualities do you look for in a presidential candidate?
Honesty, but you'd never know that. I guess you know, could we get to the core? And I guess that's impossible. Maybe, you know, I think that you know, who are we? You know, who do we want to be? And then how are we going to get there? But we just get distracted. We're a very distracted society. We're a very distracted nation. We're a very distracted people. We're texting while we're talking, and we're texting while we're walking, and we're, you know what I mean? And I'm not saying I'm not that person too, but the qualities would be, I'd love to know someone. I don't think anyone would get elected if they said, this is who I am, this is who we want to be, I mean, I guess we can't agree on that, you know what I mean? Let the people have their money and lower taxes or whatever it is, but I don't know. I liked Ronald Reagan, but he was a Cub fan though. So the guy we got now is a Sox fan, so we got to get a new one. Boy, that's a tough one there. There are some thoughts of all the people that I like, but then you have to wonder if they're saying that to get elected, or is that really your heart? And then if you really do your heart, if I really said my heart, would you like me anymore? And that's sad. You know what I mean? So, and we can't know that we can't know. I think that, when I think about it in a coaching thing, is the president is only as good as the people that he can get around him. And that's a mark of a great head coach, I think, is where you've got great people working for you and with you, and part of that's a blessing, and part of that is, you're good to work for, or whatever. I don't know, but I think the president's cabinet is as important as the president.
That makes a lot of sense. Dan from Arden Hills would like to know, he's heard you say on the show that you think you have ADD or something. Don't you think some of the way that your brain functions is why you're so good at being a coach?
I do think that. I do think that there's a little bit of a, ADD is misunderstood, and I kind of joke about it, but ADD they talk about that being kind of ADHD, especially with kids, can't sit still and they're crazy. And I think that what I've heard anyways is that there's you're kind of stuck more than, so your actions are kind of out of frustration, and so, I do like to be crazy, happy, and excited about all those different things, and I don't know if that's ADD or not, but staying on the subject and staying in that mix for a little bit is an important piece. But at the same time, I do think you're right, is that especially in football, you got to deal with what's going on right now, and you got to be prepared what's next, and then the next thing you got to kind of be a step ahead of everything, and then a ref makes a tough call, and you got to discipline yourself to get off of that, because you're kind of after him, and now that stuff I described, that you need to be a couple calls ahead, all of a sudden, your focus is back here, and it ought to be up here. And so it is good practice for life, but it's a wild situation on the when you're in the middle of a game and there's a lot of stuff going on, and your gut hurts a little bit, and you're hoping for your guys, and you're doing all those things. It's hard to stay where you ought to be. And I don't know about all the ADD thing, but I want to be able to flow and go and do all those things. So
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't know if it helps or not, but it is a job that needs, you got to be doing a lot of stuff at once.
That's for sure. Closing out, we go to our praise God and hallelujah anyhow. So what are we praising God for this month?
We're thankful for our guys. We had safe trip for the guys that studied abroad, and I'm just thinking about our team coming back is just really thankful for the hearts that they have, and there's a sweet spirit about them, and they're a bunch of tough suckers, and I love that. And we just want to be surrounded by a bunch of sweethearted tough guys, and then we'll give our hearts away and work our butts off.
And what are we saying hallelujah anyhow to?
Hallelujah anyhow is it snowed 10 inches or whatever the other day, and kind of working through those weather things, and I try to be that hallelujah guy anyways, this is, if something's just gonna knock you down. I've been a little bit sick, and hallelujah anyway. And the good news was, I didn't have to coach a game, and I wasn't in the mid, but I don't know. I just think hallelujah anyway is everything.
That sounds great. Well, thanks for joining us this month, Coach.
Thank you.
We want to thank Coach Johnson for joining us on Quick Slants this month. If you have your own questions you'd like to ask the Bethel Coach, please send them to us at stevejohnson@minorleaguesportsupport.com. That's stevejohnson@minorleaguesportsupport.com. Just as a reminder, during the off season, we'll record this show on the first Wednesday of each month. So we just ask that you have questions to us by the Tuesday prior to that, to give the coach a little time to review the questions before we record the show. I want to thank you for joining us this month. I'm Rob Paneer, the managing editor of the Minor League Sports Report, and we'll see you next month on Quick Slants.